This stuff is in the movies for a reason. Our adversary is a master at deception.
Hey guys, it's the Vilest Most Excellent here, and thank you for checking out my video. I'm going to be talking about dualism, and how it's really the religion of the elite, the Illuminists, the so-called Illuminati, and the various organizations that might fall under that umbrella term, like the Freemasons, Knights Templar, Skull and Bones, Gnostics, which, the Freemasons are just Gnostics, they just go by another name now. Satanists, which, the Satanists, they have their Baphomet symbolism, which Baphomet is the very epitome of dualism. He represents about every dualistic aspect that you can think of. And, there's a little bit of this in the New Age movement, and obviously in Wicca with its god and goddess worship. And, this stuff is found all over the place in all kinds of worldviews, like Taoism and just Chinese philosophy in general with the yin and the yang. That's dualism. But really one of the main focuses of this video will be me trying to show this elitist group, these Illuminati, how they put their religious beliefs directly into pop culture through movies, video games, and things like that. And, I want to explain a little bit what their belief system is so that you can recognize it and see it for what it is, because it's a religion. It's their belief system, and just like any other religion or belief system, it can be evaluated and critiqued. And the reason no one's done that so far is because it's esoteric. It's hidden knowledge. They keep it secret for just this reason, to avoid it being utterly refuted. Because when someone takes their crazy religious beliefs, like Mormons or Jehovah's Witnesses, and they take them out into the public, what happens? Over a period of time, people just come along, that have their own belief system, and they look at that, and they say, well, this part of it is just irrational, doesn't make sense. And the same thing can be done with the Illuminati and their religious belief. So the first thing I'm going to do is explain what they believe, but also keep in mind, they don't just put it out there like it's just something you can watch and be like, well, there it is, that's what they believe. It's always secretive, hidden, esoteric, the way that they do things. It's, it's sneaky even. And which is all about exposing Gnosticism in movies. So check that out if you're interested in more stuff like this. So the first movie I want to jump to is The Matrix, which it's actually a trilogy of movies. But as most of you probably already know, it all starts out with the main character, Neo, being unknowingly trapped in a type of computer simulation of Earth known as the Matrix. It's even called a prison for the mind by one of the characters.
Like everyone else, you were born into bondage. Born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
But you have some duality symbolism sprinkled throughout the Matrix movies, like checkerboard flooring, the famous red and blue pill scene from the first Matrix, and one character even wears yin-yang earrings in the third movie, which is significant when you realize the Gnostic character she's playing. But you have the demiurge from Gnosticism making an appearance in the second and third movies. The character called the Architect is essentially this machine or program that's the creator of the Matrix, and who has enslaved all mankind within it. Though in the second movie, he actually speaks about a co-creator.
I am the architect. I created the Matrix.
The Oracle.
If I am the father of the Matrix, she would undoubtedly be its mother.
And she's actually the one I mentioned who wears the dualistic earrings, the yin-yangs. But these two co-creators seem to portray the Gnostic belief in the dual demiurge that I was talking about before. But what's more is that the name Architect for the demiurge character is pretty telling, and more than appropriate, since demiurge can be translated into many English words like architect. For example, it could be translated as fashioner or artisan, craftsman, creator, designer, and plenty of other synonyms of words like those, which would obviously include architect. So architect is definitely one way to refer to the Gnostic demiurge. But even more telling is that the Freemasons, who as I said in the beginning are just neo-Gnostics, neo meaning new, but they actually refer to the demiurge as the Grand Architect, so it would seem that at least some Gnostics prefer the translation. But the architect in the movie is portrayed as this calculating, evil genius whose only flaw is his obsession with perfection.
The first Matrix I designed was quite naturally perfect. It was a work of art, flawless, sublime, a triumph equaled only by its monumental failure. I have since come to understand that the answer eluded me because it required a lesser mind, or perhaps a mind less bound by the parameters of perfection.
While the Oracle's character is portrayed as much more of a free spirit, you know, smoking cigarettes, baking cookies, and occasionally assisting humans in the upheaval of the Matrix she helped to create. So, she's rebelling against the system she helped put in place. Sounds slightly familiar, you know, like Lucifer, supposed co-demiurge, yet notorious rebel, who's fighting for mankind against his dualistic counterpart. But that's not all. The rabbit hole goes deeper still. And yes, that was a Matrix pun. So in the third and final movie, we come to a point where Neo actually approaches the physical architect that resides outside the Matrix, known as the Deus Ex Machina, which quite fittingly literally means God out of the machine. But the first time Neo met the architect, it was in the second movie, and he was within the Matrix, and let's just say he was much more pleasant. So essentially, long story short, Neo enters the Matrix by being plugged directly into the Deus Ex Machina, or the architect, essentially becoming tethered to him while inside the Matrix. It's kind of like he's walking around with the architect inside him or something, but simultaneous to all this, Neo's arch nemesis throughout the movies, Agent Smith, has basically, I guess, possessed or assimilated is a way to say it, every single person in the Matrix. But the last person we see him assimilate is the Oracle character.
The great and powerful Oracle. We meet at last.
So essentially both Neo and Smith in the Matrix have become the host bodies for the two aspects of the dual demiurge. Then there's this huge fight between Neo and Smith, and in the end, Agent Smith assimilates Neo, and he merges with him in a sense. But essentially, when Smith does this, Neo, like the others who have been assimilated, morphs into a kind of clone of Agent Smith. Then we see a scene that's outside the Matrix where the architect, the Deus Ex Machina, shoots this light into Neo's actual body, and it goes into the Matrix and comes out of the assimilated Neo. Then the Smith clone that had assimilated the Oracle and who was fighting with Neo this whole time, he begins to do the same thing and eventually bursts into a massive explosion of light. And then all these onlooking Agent Smiths who were clones, they've just been watching this fight the whole time, they follow suit and they all begin to explode in perfect unison. So in the end, this kills both Neo and Smith, but it frees the human population trapped in the Matrix. So if you're paying attention, we see nearly every element I mentioned is in play here. We have the obvious allusion to the construct in the form of the Matrix. We have the dual demiurge in the form of the Oracle and the Architect, who, based upon their characteristic personalities, obviously allude to Adonai and Lucifer. And then we have their being synthesized together through the merger of Neo and Smith, the two demiurges' incarnations, in a sense, which ends in their destruction and brings about the freedom of mankind from the construct, the Matrix. So you see, that's quite in step with what I was talking about. But another movie that shows similar elements to these is Tron Legacy.